Greetings, sustainability superheroes. My name is Dr. Aurora Benton, and I am the change maker in the Veraverse. We are all change makers, so it is such an honor and a distinction to have that title in this space. Thank you to the Vera Vigilantes for all their fantastic efforts to elevate and support us. A fundamental tenet of being a change maker is that you get people to change. So I want to share a bit about my journey and perspective on how to get people to do something most people don't want to do, which is to change, whether that be their thinking, their behavior, their habits, their priorities. Whatever you are asking them to change, you're essentially asking them to give something up. For me and for many watching this, the concept of change and like evolving your thinking and behavior, well, that comes natural. It's one of the reasons that we are the leaders in sustainability. We have a gift for seeing a vision and wanting to endure the difficulty of getting from where we are to where we want to be. That's a change maker. But the vast majority of people, though, they don't have this gift. It's not to say they don't want better for their lives, for their families, for their communities, for their businesses. It just means that the comfort of the status quo is powerful and even addictive. When I started Astrapto 6 years ago, I noticed how much people in the field of sustainability use blame and shame and fear and urgency. And I get why. There is urgency to the problems that we need to solve and the behavior that we need to reverse. We need activists, we need truth, and sometimes we need a good old-fashioned kick in the pants. And honestly, my default position comes from a place of intensity and passion and excellence. I am demanding. I want people to change. I can be severe and tough. Just ask any of my former students. But as I was reading the headlines and the social media posts, I couldn't help but think, is this really working? How in the world are these comments going to really make any difference? I mean, this is really just classic preaching to the choir kind of talk. The people most likely to read these articles and posts are the believers. It's the deniers that we're trying to convince. It's the passive that we're trying to activate. And it was abundantly clear that the tone and the approach are mostly ineffective. Don't get me wrong. There is a role for activism, lobbying, protest, screaming, blaming, and all the other negative reinforcement styles. Without them, we likely would not move the needle sufficiently in government regulations or in getting the attention of major brands and showing them we mean business when it comes to protecting the weak and vulnerable in supply chains, stewarding the Earth's resources, and operating with transparency and integrity. Now, most of us will not be doing this work on the streets or in government institutions. We're going to be doing this work in organizations. Most of us need to be able to convince one coworker at a time to join the cause and take action. I often work with those whose passion outpaces their professionalism. They care so deeply about the cause, but they have not figured out how to translate this into strategy or action. And due to the nature of corporate culture and hierarchical structures, there is a tendency to think that special skills or permission are required to address the problem. This often leads them to ask people like me, or maybe yourselves, how do I get a career in sustainability? There's this notion that with the right authority or title, they can implement all these changes that they have in mind, that the grass will be greener once they have an official position. But even if you have the dream title and a full sustainability budget and authority, change would be harder than you can think because the root of successful sustainability is change management. People, on the whole, do not like change, even when they agree on a philosophical level with the cause or initiative. They will almost always default to the path of least resistance, which is usually to keep things just as they are. Remember that sustainability is often about walking into a room and turning on a light. First, there are those people who are pretending to sleep, and you can't wake them up. Eventually, they may see the light, but the best strategy for dealing with those types of people is probably through regulations and policy. But then there are those, the rest, most people actually, who simply didn't realize they were in the dark. And they certainly didn't realize what they couldn't even see. We can't blame a person for not seeing when they've been sitting in the dark. Furthermore, the light that we turn on that draws them out, it needs to be enticing, not threatening. It needs to illuminate and guide, not blind and scorch. We tend to occupy the spaces of the general, the philosophical, the high level, the big picture. But without the transactional, the tactical, the tangible, the tactile, nothing changes. If you're in this workshop, I'm guessing you are natural and comfortable in the space of the philosophical and the strategic. You are willing to go deep, ask tough questions, demand more of yourself and those around you. You are, after all, a superhero. As a superhero, you probably think your role is to save the planet, or maybe save a particular community, or maybe save a certain endangered species. But what does it look like to also see your role as saving coworkers, executives, owners, and investors? Okay, let me tell a little story. An employee in a hotel developed a passion for environmental action. She started noticing the lack of environmental initiatives at her property, but even more so, the personal choices that just make matters worse. So what do I mean? For example, why won't her coworkers walk an extra 2 feet to properly dispose of recycling? Why do the admins insist on printing out agendas and reports for meetings that no one looks at? Why does the shuttle driver leave the van idling all the time? Why are the lights always on in the storage closets? Most of the time, I find that people interpret such behaviors as almost someone in purposefully or intentionally being a pain in the ass or willfully harming the earth. And she was venting to me, so we worked on breaking these things down and really coming up with a communication plan, a communication strategy for her. So for example, with the storage lights, the closets, she found this was the case, and there's 2 closets on each floor of an 11-story hotel, so 22 closets. She asked housekeeping and maintenance, how many minutes per day are you in these closets, retrieving supplies or stocking supplies? Turns out the closets are actually in use about 15 minutes per day each. So we did some quick math, and the total time the lights in those closets were on, when you add up all the hours of the day, all the numbers of closets, the total was more than 192,000 hours per year, when in reality, the lights only need to be on a little over 2,000 hours per year. Here's why I shared this particular story. Clearly, I'm a sustainability champion. I'm a sustainability consultant. I've made incredible impact through my work, but I am terrible about leaving lights on. Growing up, my dad worked for the electric company, and we were never told, never reprimanded to turn the lights off. My parents still leave the lights on all the time. My dad said it kept him employed and paid, and that pays for all the fun stuff we had and enjoyed in life. And I'm sure he meant that as a joke, but it was instilled in me that leaving the lights on has benefits. Plus, it's just convenient, right? To have the light on when you walk in the room. The choices we make are so wrapped up in history, personal experiences, relationships. And if you're trying to get people to turn lights off by using the climate change and climate urgency argument, you may become frustrated and be ineffective. And you may find this example too simplistic. You may think this is so obvious, but I have lost count of the number of times I encountered this exact kind of situation. I mean, I literally hear these stories all the time. It plays out in terms of where the recycling bin is placed in a room, what color the trash bag is, what size bowl we put salad dressing on or in, which rain mats are we using, and a million other small decisions that add up to significant and necessary planetary impact. Never mind the truly entrenched assumptions and attitudes behind initiatives such as diversity, equity, and inclusion. The key is to engage people not as a component of your plan, but as humans who need empathy and patience and encouragement and education. Another point to keep in mind is that while you are pursuing your passion to reach new heights of positive impact and radical transformation of society, remember that sometimes people resist change because of fear of the unknown. What will they see when you turn on the light? How much work are you going to create for them? How much are you going to ask them to give up or to abandon their predetermined beliefs? How much will you require them to learn, to be exposed or be embarrassed? For any of us called to greatness and on a journey of self-discovery in which we increasingly tap into our power, we have to fight the urge to think of these small actions as beneath us or not worth our time or effort. Each of us manifests small actions that deliver impact, particularly when we meet people where they're at and illuminate a path forward. And that makes them feel safe and successful. While these concepts are not revolutionary, they are woefully underutilized. As sustainability superheroes, we tend to want to save the day in a way that few are capable of, to manifest our alter egos. But for this part of the work, we often need to be our everyday persona, to be approachable and gracious and patient, to be satisfied with small steps. I hope you feel encouraged to examine how you sell your ideas and work with others to bring about the change you want to see.